Welcome to the first off-season edition of Southbound and Down, episode 15.1, Confessions. I'm the professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn, and this is the premier NFC podcast hosted by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, and I'm glad to be united with my fellas again, my esteemed panel of my friends and the people I hate the most, NFC fans. How you guys doing? Scott, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How about you?
Hanging in there. Scott, tell them what your team is, who you are, and where they can find you.
Atlanta Falcons. You can find my stuff at Bleacher Report for now. And then, just find me on Twitter. Scott.
He's a nomad.
I'm a nomad at this point.
He's a nomad. It's in his blood. Greg Barber, New Orleans Saints. How's it going, my man?
Greg Barber here. I'm doing good. Greg Barber representing the New Orleans Saints. You can find me at IntenseGB. I'm not writing for anyone specific at this point. Still a free agent. Maybe I'll figure something out when the football season kicks in and what I might do. But right now, got other matters I'm dealing with and doing.
You gotta deal with these jokers right here. Gene Thomas,
Absolutely.
What's up, my man?
What is going on? I was the only Buccaneer fan in the whole city of Phoenix walking around during that time.
People were looking at you like, this guy's lost.
I tell you what, I got all kind of responses from "Did you lose a bet?" to "I'm proud that you're sporting your team." So it was fun.
I thought they were gonna say, "Are you here to find a new team?" Joe Riollano, that freaking Puerto Rican. What's up? Long time no see.
Yeah, Tony, it has been a long time. All the way since last night, 24 hours ago. It's good to be back, though. This is, I really do enjoy doing this show, and it's good to be back with everybody.
Yes.
All right. Right on. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to keep it tight. Keep a tight window tonight. I'm Tony Dunn. I'm the host of this show because I know the least about the football out of all these guys. So what I do is I ask questions and then I joke on them in the process. I know the least about the football. All right, let's start with Atlanta. Let's start with Scott. Dan Quinn, new head coach. Is he going to be a difference maker in replacement of Mike Smith?
Well, Mike Smith has about the motivation skills of a wet sock. So Dan Quinn is, you see him at the press conference, you're like, man, I kind of want to strap up a helmet and hit somebody. This is great.
I'd love to see that.
In high school, you would have seen that.
He's going to go against Mysterio, whoever that is. Okay, so, all right, is this going to bring the defensive presence needed for the Atlanta Falcons?
I think so. I think he's the right coach for Atlanta. It feels like the right fit the same way that Sean Payton in 2006 felt like the right fit for the Saints. When Sean Payton went to New Orleans, I was like, oh, damn, that's not going to be fun to face him for years. A lot of the same way that John Fox felt like a good fit for Carolina when he was there. I mean, he overstayed his welcome, but when he first went there, you were like, man, that's the right coach for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that.
That's the way Dan Quinn feels right now. I'm like, man, this is going to be a fun one. Atlanta's got a quarterback. There's no question there. Atlanta's got some defensive talent, and he can put them in the right spots, Tony. And
if not, he's got Scott to tell him how to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
thing, because Dan Quinn's a good coach, he's going to do that naturally. I don't have to worry about it.
Well, we got to see it happen. Well, we'll see it on defense. So, okay, we'll see it happen. So, you're excited that he's going to bring some excitement, more so than the wet sock, and he knows how to put guys in the right position. how's that going to change the personnel problems?
But when you've got guys playing in the right spots, you don't have as many personnel holes.
Right.
Okay.
If you're using them in the right role, if Warlow's not covering a wide receiver one-on-one, because let's be honest, he shouldn't be doing that. He plays more of that Bobby Wagner, mid to short zone, blitz, or play the run. That's his role. That's Warlow's best role. You get a healthy Sean Weatherspoon back playing weak side linebacker in that scheme, it's going to be scary. You have Trufant, you have Moore, you have Alford. Those three guys are instant starters in the exact same spots they're at, and Moore can play that chancellor role. And I think Alford's going to be a lot better in a press coverage scheme than he was in the Mike Nolan play 7 different coverages scheme. You've got some defensive tackles, but you need a strong side linebacker, you need both defensive ends, and you need a free safety for that defense to have any semblance of at least average this year. The big thing that they really need is a guy who can cover deep, play that deep third, and be effective at it. They might have one in Desmond Southward, but that's a big need.
Is that going to be your draft pick, or will that be a free agent acquisition?
Oh, no, I'm kind of pending the draft pick in right now is either Dante Fowler, and if he's not there, I think Vic Beasley's the guy.
Really?
Yeah, because you're going to get Michael Bennett / Justin Houston as that's his ceiling and floor, in my opinion, for Dante Fowler.
Yeah.
Where Vic Beasley is Bruce Irvin or Von Miller.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, and with the number 8 overall pick, that's not unrealistic expectations for either of those guys.
Yeah, I think both of those should be available for the 8th pick.
Beasley, definitely, I believe. I believe he'll definitely be there.
Beasley will definitely be there, and people will go, man, he's a late first-round talent. Why is he here? And I'm just going to look at it and go, I'm down with Beasley.
The biggest knock I heard of him is that he's kind of smallish.
Right, that's my concern. It's his size.
Bruce Irvin's 230 pounds.
Yeah, agreed. I know. Yeah, Irvin's not very big either. You're right.
And Rasheem Mathis played at 220 pounds for probably 6 years.
I mean, even Junior Gillette is not even overall. He's a smallish pass rusher himself. It's basically he's a speed rusher. You know.
Which is what Beasley will be.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, because I mean, So,
he's not overpowering anybody.
Right.
So do you put him on the right side then?
Who, Beasley?
Yeah.
No, you start him as strong side linebacker, and then in nickels you slide him down to defensive end. That's the exact same role.
Yeah, he'd be a little bit of a hybrid.
Bruce Irvin is playing right now.
Yeah, he'd be a hybrid. Yeah.
That's probably his best role, rushing off the end. He's probably going to still stand up either way, but who cares? It's still a defensive end if he's lined up on the line in a 2-point stance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, yep. He just standing. So, I guess I can ask my question, right?
Yeah, jump in there.
Okay. I guess the question I would have for the Atlanta Falcons, our biggest and most hated rival. I mean, congratulations on your coach. Definitely a good pick, no doubt. You're right.
I think so.
Probably the right guy right now with the defense. How quickly do you think that he can get this team into competitive shape? I mean, because you got some pieces there. Don't get me wrong, and you may even, and I kind of think that you may even surprise some people on the first year. You know what I'm saying? Because the fact that you were 6-10, teams tend to take you lightly when that next year, especially with a new coach. They don't expect as much. But how quickly do you think the team would be, and how quickly do you think they'll be up to speed and competitively?
I think next season they could very well make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
But I'm saying 9-7, 10-6 in the wild card. I wouldn't be.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I don't think you're wrong there either, to be honest.
Especially who the South will play.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. First, just to stay on that same line of thought, is that this is all assuming that Atlanta's offense is fine, and that the defense is the whole piece that's been holding them back. What part of the offense is kind of maybe the sneaky part, the sneaky weakness? You know, Roddy White's aging. You haven't had an established back at this time that I know of. You know, it's still kind of you're still trying to figure it out. What part concerns you the most? Is it the offensive line?
The complete lack of a tight end.
Yeah, that's exactly what crossed my mind right there with the tight end. Was the first thing I was thinking right there.
But I will say Jordan Cameron's available in free agency.
Yeah,
he's unhappy. He's unhappy.
He wants to get the hell out of Cleveland, which, I mean, it's
Who
Cleveland doesn't want to.
Who don't at this point?
Right.
Well, a bunch of guys wish they would have put free agency up in Cleveland right about now.
Yeah.
Hey, can I just interject while we're on this? How is your salary cap in Atlanta?
Atlanta's $31 million under projected 140 right now.
Okay.
If the cap goes up to 144, they'll be at 35.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it should be around 142 to 145 from what I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard 144 is the number it's probably going to come in at.
That's about right. 144, 145 and a half, but you know, I would project a little lower, like 142, 141, just in case, but probably closer to 144.
I always go off.
That's up almost $9 million, isn't it?
Yeah, the cap. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
14 million.
Yeah, 9 to 10 million. Yeah, because it was 130. Was it 130 this year?
It was 130.
135, something like
that. I thought it got up to 134. Okay, let me.
But
it went up at the last second. Here, do you guys? Last question that's on our mind, Scott, is this. Tell us about this. We're in the booth right now, and you can confess your sins if you would like. What is going on in Atlanta with y'all cheating, sinful selves? I'm here to receive your confession.
Absolutely. Explain yourself.
Arthur Blank said it best. I didn't know what was going on. When it found out, I was livid, and I fired the guy. That's basically what he said. If you read between the lines, and you read Old Angry New Yorker, I mean, let's be honest.
Why do you guys have to pump crowd noise in if you guys got the best fans in the world?
We don't have the best fans in the world.
No, you don't.
We're claiming that we have the best fans in the world.
Nobody ever.
We have some of the worst fans in the world. But our fans are not exactly great. There's like 30,000 diehards, and then there's the rest of the city. Who is big fans, and if you're winning fans, and then you've got like Pittsburgh fans who root for Atlanta because they live here, and Philly fans who root for Atlanta because they live here, and Dallas fans, and friggin' Washington fans.
Yeah, everybody loves a winner.
Basically, there's no jobs anymore. So they move to Atlanta, get jobs, and then root for their teams from here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've heard that many a times where you get, because it's such a transient city, I mean, everybody's in and out of there. I mean, that's a lot of places. I mean, that's that's definitely a lot of places.
It's nowhere close to it, though.
Huh?
Charlotte's nowhere close to that. Charlotte is ridiculously, like, they're Panthers Central. Because they don't have a lot of transplants in Charlotte. And over half the city's not from Atlanta.
Well, they do because of the banking industry that takes place in Charlotte. But even the people that come to Charlotte do pull for the Panthers, even though they may not be the favorite team. They do pull for them.
Right.
And outside of Charlotte, the Panthers have a huge fan base in the immediate proximity, you know, with, I'd say, a 50, 60 mile radius.
And it's because the distance of any other sport to pull for a lot for the Carolina Panthers. You know what I mean? Is that the closest sport to pull for is the Atlanta Braves. So, and, you know, the basketball situation has it. So that it's a football town. Okay, let's go on to New Orleans that has their own family drama. You have your owner fire his own daughter, right? Was it the owner?
It was his granddaughter.
Yeah, it was his
granddaughter.
Yeah, it was
a trifling ass granddaughter fired her And then you've got the two brothers, Rex Ryan and Sean Payton, fist fighting in the back room. And I'm exaggerating, but what is going on in the soap opera that is New Orleans, and is it fixable?
I hope not.
I don't definitely situation there. Now, the granddaughter was a years ago. She was a tyrant a long time ago. She was pretty brutal, and I mean, she went through like 30 assistants in like a couple years' time. And I mean, literally, Sean Payton actually, when Sean Payton renegotiated his contract to come back after Bountygate, he was getting a new contract. He had actually had a contract where if Mickey Loomis were to leave, he could leave too, but the NFL nixed that contract. Of course, Benson understood why, because he knew if Benson knew that the granddaughter was initially going to take over the team. That's who initially was going to be taking it over. The problem is because of the fact that she was rather immature for the most part and pretty entitled, that her and Payton didn't get along very well. So Payton wasn't going to put up with her. And Loomis was the kind of go-between those two, that he's the one that can handle her. And that's where he wanted that was his buffer. And he knows that his buffer was gone. That was it. So that's why he kind of negotiated that in the contract. But overall, I mean, it's going to take years. It might take years before that whole thing is settled. So I think in the fact that everybody seems to like the wife very much. And, I mean, Jimmy Graham, Drew Brees, most everybody else seem to like the wife very much. So if she takes over, it's still pretty much a decent transition, a good transition, a better transition than having a granddaughter. So far as I'm concerned, at this point, even though it's something that's brewing in the back, it's not something that's going to spill over to the field by any means. It shouldn't. I mean, that's a fight for Tom Benson to handle. That's nothing to do with what's going on in the field at this point in time. Now if she ends up winning or somehow and end up taking over the team, that might strike the fear in a lot of hearts of a lot of people, because then you might have people leaving, trying to get the hell out of there. Because you might be out for blood, for those who didn't support her and things like that. So, for the most part, but at this point in time, that drama right there is in the back burner as far as I'm concerned at this point. I wouldn't worry. It's not something I'm worried about.
All right, I'm just Googling pictures of her, Rita, and talk about a girl that can look 100 times different in every picture.
Well, you got the daughter, but then you got the granddaughter. The granddaughter, yeah. Because Reba's the stepdaughter. His stepdaughter, adopted daughter, actually. His adopted daughter, I'm sorry. It's Rita that's the one that's going to take over the title. And that was the one that was. She's about 39, 40 years old. She's not even 40 yet, I don't think. And you're talking about, that dude is worth about $2 billion. So she would have been taking over the dealerships, hotels, both teams, everything he got. And he's worth $2 billion. Worth about $2 billion, something like that in that range.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you can say $2 billion.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that granddaddy myself.
Okay, it seems that though there's a lot of, in fact, Rita, I'm married, but billionaire.
Well, I'm still single, so I could marry in. I got.
Forgive me, Father. It is confessions night. My question is this: is that if you're gonna grade the teams in the NFC South concerning the cap, the New Orleans Saints are in the worst position out of all four teams.
Yeah.
How do you fix these problems given the cap troubles you have? And is this something that's going to be entirely have to be done with the roster that you have to be stuck with and the draft?
No, at the last few years, the Saints have been in cap trouble every year. And they have mechanisms built into their contracts where they can just convert like the roster bonuses, the signing bonuses, spread them out over 3 or 4 years, and then pay the players cash and leave cap room. So they'll do that. More likely they'll work that. They got certain roster bonuses. Jimmy Graham, I think, David Hawthorne, some guys like that, Marcus Colston, some of those whoever have roster bonuses available that are due. they'll probably take those, cut them down, and then eventually that'll cut down as far as the deficit they have right now. Now, where it really comes down to where the rubber meets the road is going to be who they're going to be cutting. You know, they may have a couple players they may cut or take a pay cut. So you may see somebody like Marcus Colston who they may keep, but at a much lower figure, because I think he's like getting due $7 million, $7 to $9 million in that range. I think it's $7 million, and you know, basically he didn't outperform his contract last year at all. So they may cut his contract, and I think they keep him at a lower rate. Somebody like David Hawthorne may be getting cut. I think Roderick Bunkley is somebody else that may end up getting cut because they're going to have to make some room. They're going to probably have to need about $4 or $5 million for the draft pick, to sign the draft pick,
Right.
and then if they want to sign 1 or 2 free agents, you know, here and there, to plug a hole here and there, they may do that. But I only position I can think of they would do as far as free agency is cornerback and maybe linebackers, which you know, I mean, Patrick Robinson's going to be a free agent, so he'll probably be off. I think he'll be gone unless they keep him at a lower rate.
What free agent do they need to sign that's on the roster currently?
They got Mark Ingram, who's right now. Mark Ingram might be their highest priority out of the bunch I can think of right off the top of my head. Everybody else, to me, they can almost. To me, if they let most of them walk, I'm not that hurt. For the most part, I don't see anybody else they have to keep. You know, not Patrick Robinson, definitely not. You know, it's a couple of guys there that they don't have to keep, as far as I'm concerned, because some of them they need to plug in. I mean, Robinson, I think it's time for him to see new pasture, you know, go elsewhere. I mean, some people thinking about keeping him because he kind of improved at the end of the season. Not enough for me. I'm still highly unimpressed. So I would prefer if he goes. Ingram, I'm okay with keeping, but for the most part, other than that, not too many more. Not too many more.
Hey, Greg. Quick question for you. With Father Time looking through the window at Drew Brees, do you guys have anybody lined up that you're potentially looking at to replace him, or should the Saints start looking for somebody to groom to replace Drew Brees?
I would not be surprised if they do draft a quarterback here. Did they draft somebody kind of in the mid-round, lower round if they think it's a good prospect? You know what I mean? Because it ain't like they got to go first-round pick, go quarterback at this point.
That would be foolish.
Huh?
That would be foolish.
Extremely foolish, right?
Yeah.
But if you get a good prospect at the 3rd, 4th, 5th round in that middle round area, you know, I mean, you know, you might have somebody that willing to work with. Ryan Grant is another kid I like who was a free agent for Tulane that they've had the last 2 or 3 years, and I think he's all shown some potential. I mean, not necessarily ready to be a starter, but he's shown some potential to me that I'm willing to see them, you know, groom him a little more. I thought they would have cut McGowan this year, you know, myself. I thought they would have cut him this past season and brought Grant in to kind of, you know, get him a little more time with Breeze. Right. But they really didn't. They didn't do that. They kept McGowan. They kept the veteran at that point, and you know that's fine too. But I mean that's you know, don't get me wrong. It's probably right about time now to draft him, and then you know, I mean maybe with Breeze contract, and maybe they extend it 1 year. You know, save some money off the salary cap. You know, with maybe. You know, even if it's $5 or $6 million, and bring it down from 26 to 20 million, and you got another $6 million to work with. You know, and you just kind of pay them that in that last year, and do something like that. I don't know, figure something out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What area do the Saints need to improve on the most to get back into the playoff?
Right. Number 2 cornerback, glaringly, that was my fear beginning of last year, and it definitely proved, you know, it definitely my concerns were correct. You know what I mean? Because I felt like that was the one position right there I was more scared of than any other. And number 2, the pass rush. I mean, they got whether it's going to be another Russian linebacker or defensive lineman or something. I mean, you know, kind of like he mentioned Vic Beasley and Dante Fowler. Scott had mentioned them. They had also been people had also said that we might draft one of those 2 as well. I've seen drafts with them too. But we know how to combine. Once the combine works out, that's when you really kind of got a better idea
Yeah.
Where everybody kind of not really where they're going to land, but you have a better idea of what's available in those rounds, in that area. So
Where are the Saints picking?
13th.
Okay.
13th.
Okay.
Yep, they're picking 13th in the spot. So, and I mean, like I looked at a couple of mock drafts and I did study a couple of guys here and there, but I haven't really like dug into it yet. So I'm gonna start digging into it soon here and start looking at all 7 rounds, looking at some of some really good steals and things like that, and trying to figure out some guys so I can get a familiarity as I go through the draft. Because I tend to like that once I know some guys because I've got an ideal of them. It's easier to gauge whether they made a good pick or they scared the hell out of me with something.
All right, Scott, from the outside looking in, what do you want to know about the Falcons while you got Greg on the line? I mean the Falcons, the Saints. Yeah.
So how are the Saints going to replace Ryan Pace? Because he was mainly the talent evaluator, while Loomis was the cap guy and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Loomis has always been a cap. Jeff Ireland, that's who they replace him. He's going to be the head of scouting. And our reality was it was not a position that was needed. Well, what it was, they kind of made that position for him, kind of like an assistant or whatever. At the time, this is what I read, that they kind of made for him, and just kind of giving him a little more stack, I guess, probably for a future general manager job, those type of things. So that's kind of why they had that position, so that his particular position may be in a sense eliminated because they have him being Jeff Ireland. Now, me, as far as picking Ireland, I figure, I guess, as long as he ain't the damn, I'm not going to have a heart attack. He might be, some players that we've picked up and evaluated and kept, and he has some other ones that he blew it on. And that's every talent evaluator. Everybody can, we put it, it's like coaches with calls or quarterbacks with throws. You can yell at them or get mad at them for whatever. So I mean, hopefully he'll be better at talent evaluating than what he was as a GM at this point, and we'll see. But that's who's basically replacing Pace, and also the other fellow that they fired there. I can't think of his damn name. His name slips me. I know who he is, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy he replaced.
But there ain't no need to know him anymore because he's gone.
He out. And they also have a couple other guys too who worked in the scouting department who's been there for a long time, and who they think that's going to be a future GM as well. They got a couple other guys there too as well.
All right, perfect. We're gonna move down south to Tampa Bay. Gene Thomas, super heavyweight. I read a headline today. I was trying to pull up the story, but it's either my internet or somebody else is going slow. And that is, it said this, the worst team in NFC South history, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It was from the pewter plank, Sander Phillips. He's the
that's
guy.
your own site, too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't read it, but how bad are you guys if that's the talk?
I personally don't follow him, but that's just me. I keep going back to this, and call me crazy if you want to, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in 8 games this year, and they lost by 8 points or less. So they were in a lot of games that they could have won, but they don't have the talent to. They didn't have the talent to finish the job. And the fact, I'm not making excuses, but you do not have an offensive coordinator. You have a quarterbacks coach who's never called plays before calling plays. You end up with 2 1,000-yard receivers, and if you have an offensive line, you've got running backs that can get through these holes. There were no holes to run through. So what I saw was a team that's missing some pieces, and with 9 draft picks and $25.5 million in the cap, several players that you could cut to make a little bit more cap room, I think you could fill a lot of holes in the offseason if you do it right, and you can make a lot of moves to make us where we were contenders. I saw something in Bleacher Report as well that said that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in 5 games, which were 1 play away from winning. So, we weren't this team that got blown out every time we played.
Sure.
There were games against the Falcons that we did get blown out. The Ravens, we got blown out. But for the most part, the majority of the games we played in, we were in the game despite these handicaps that we had.
Yeah, I always had a rule of thumb. There's going to be 1 or 2 games every year that a team's just going to get their ass kicked and they ain't going to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just going to get out on the field. The other team going to roll their helmets out there, beat the hell out of you. There ain't nothing you can do about it. They just got you. At least 2 games out of the year is like that.
Yeah.
And then...
And I don't know if you want to say fortunately, unfortunately, we do have the first overall pick in the draft. And if you talk to fans, it's crazy. Social media, it's Team Jameis Winston versus Team Marcus Mariota versus Team trade down to number 19 so Chip Kelly can get Mariota. So you've got a whole bunch of different factions here, and all I want to do is win games. That's what I want to see this team do.
Well,
and
how do you do it? How do you do it then? Because that's the number one question.
I'm glad you asked me that. You let Jason Light be the general manager. Lovie Smith deals with coaching the team. He's got an offensive coordinator now, finally, that I think that he should let him, Dirk Carter from the Atlanta Falcons. I think he should let this guy call the plays on offense. Keep his hands away from the offense. We saw what happened in Chicago when he tried to get his hands in the offense. He ended up getting fired behind it. So I think you let the OC do his job, and you just kind of overall manage the team. I know it's not going to happen, but you asked me how you win the game. You let the GM do his job, and you do your job.
So my next question to you, Gene, is this: Dirk Cutter is your offensive coordinator. Which quarterback of the top 2 best fits his scheme?
Me personally, I would take Jameis Winston. That would be my choice, because he plays in a pro-style offense at Florida State. He can get under center and take snaps. I've heard both sides of the argument, and they're legitimate arguments. But I think that Jameis Winston has really proven that he can win games with the talent around, if he does have the talent around him. So I think that, if it were me, GM Gene, that would be who I would use my draft pick on, would be to pick Jameis Winston.
Are they the only 2 options? Are Winston and Mariota really, truly the only 2 options? Because I feel like Blake Bortles last year climbed the ladder as we progressed throughout the discussion. I don't feel like in January, early February of last season, Blake Bortles was going to be the number 1 pick.
He was to the freaking Puerto Rico.
Or number 3, the number 1 quarterback. Excuse me.
That's because you don't follow the draft, man. Like, Bortles is a hell of a quarterback, and he was definitely going to be. I had him as a top 5 pick last year.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that his solidification of the number 1 overall quarterback was not there in early February.
Right, because I think, and I do believe that Teddy Bridgewater was the guy that everybody was talking about prior to his pro day.
Right.
And he's still better. Teddy Bridgewater had no reason drafted as low as he did. I said that.
Yeah, well, it was all because of that pro day. And if you look at his tape, if you exclude the pro day and just look at his game film, he should have been drafted higher than he was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question is there anybody that is outside the conversation of Mariota and Winston worthy of talking about?
Not anyone.
And not taking at number 1 necessarily, but that would be a solution.
I mean, maybe Brett Hundley, but I wouldn't trust Brett Hundley as far as I could throw.
No. Well, and this is how I look at the overall picture. You look at the NFC South. You've got Drew Brees, you've got Matt Ryan, you've got Cam Newton, and the Buccaneers have Josh McCown or Mike Glennon. We are handicapped compared to everybody else. Everybody else has a franchise quarterback, with the exception of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And regardless of how you look at it, I mean that's what we see. That's what you see outsider looking in. sometimes on Sundays when you face a quarterback, you're like, oh man, I have to face this guy, and you just don't get that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I do feel like if we had a franchise quarterback or somebody that could run the team, we would have won a few more games than what we did, despite the issues with the offensive line.
So is this, though, as a fan of the Buccaneers and playing armchair GM, are you excited about having the #1 pick this year, or would you have rather had it last year? Or is Jameis Winston the guy you really, really want, or is he the guy that you got to take?
Right now, with the Buccaneers organization, they're drafting for need, and that's kind of when you do need a quarterback. There's nobody in free agency. In free agency, if you guys can name a quarterback that could come in and get a team, right the ship, and get somebody to the playoffs, I'd love to hear it.
Hell,
but you've got a couple of quarterbacks. Go ahead.
Not this year.
Josh Freeman.
Who?
Josh Freeman.
Brian Hoyer.
Brian
Brian.
But I mean, we are just in that position. I mean, that's the most glaring hole that we have next to the offensive line is a quarterback, and that's something you have to address that.
You do.
That's a tough position, and what I mean by that is that I don't really like that position when need is so much that you have to bet the farm on a guy because you have to, not because necessarily because you really, really want to. I mean, and I understand that it's a tough position, but the thing is that when you draft a franchise quarterback or draft a #1 pick, you got to give him time. So it's going to be a 4-year experiment. If it doesn't work out, you're still right in the same position. So it's difficult. We like Jameis Winston seems to display some of the tools. Does he have the arm strength that of the typical #1 quarterback?
Oh, easily.
Most definitely. I honestly do believe that he can make those passes, and I don't think that he had the talent. He didn't have the talent around him this season that he had the year before when they won the national title, and I think they had a young offensive line and a young defense too. And that's what kind of hurt them in the end.
Yeah. But, I mean, you got to think about it, too. You got to give it to them for the fact that they did pull out all those games and went undefeated to get to the playoffs.
That's pretty amazing.
You got to give it to him. I mean, he had a lot of times where his butt was right on that fire, and he pulled it out.
It seemed, though, that sometimes that was because of him, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. That's why you want him.
His two biggest issues are his decision-making, because sometimes he throws it into traffic, and he should not do that.
Agreed.
And his throwing motion, because he looks like a shortstop trying to throw a guy out at first base when he throws the ball.
Yeah, that's that little baseball in him. In him. But
I do believe that those are both things that are coachable.
Yeah.
I think.
I say don't change his motion. Don't change his motion.
Right.
His motion is just as quick as any other player's. It's just ugly. I'll take an ugly, effective motion over a pretty one.
I mean,
like what good old Shane Carden from East Carolina gives us.
Yeah. Yeah, if you as long as he can get the ball out quick, at a good time, then you can motion.
Yeah.
What about the possibility, Gene?
I mean, that's just common sense there. That's where his ego is taking over his common sense. He got a good arm. He think he can get it in there. He take that gamble. You know what I mean? And that's just if he uses common sense, he won't make that throw. He'll get it to an outlet receiver or whatever. Right. That's all. And that's just more or less just him using his head a little more.
Gene, how realistic is it for the Bucs and the Eagles to swap first rounders and the Eagles to hand over Nick Foles?
I don't see it happening. You got to give up. You got to bet the farm because you're going from 1 to 20. And I personally do not see it happening.
But you're getting a starting quarterback, a starting quality NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I don't. It's possible, but I just don't. They would have to come with a lot to make that trade
They would
happen.
need more than that.
Yeah,
What would it take? If you threw in a fourth round pick of Nick Foles for that number one pick, and would you do it?
it would have to be something like what Seattle did with, or not Seattle, but the Rams did with Washington.
Redskins? No
Yeah.
way.
If I'm
That'll
trading
never
that
happen again.
far,
That'll
guys,
never happen again.
if I'm trading down that far, I need at least one first round pick.
Yes.
Second this year.
Yeah.
Nick Foles, and
Yep.
then like
LaShawn
Trent
McCoy.
Cole.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying Trent Cole.
LaShawn McCoy. Well, you just be a little greedy, Gene.
God, you guys watch Draft Day too
Well,
much.
you could probably get Trent Cole, who would look amazing at Tampa team.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if it were now, it's also been said that Chip Kelly doesn't necessarily believe because he thinks it's a crapshoot anyway. So it could be a very good chance that he might be edging to possibly take that first pick. You know, you never know. He may be in talks for that, and he might be trying to see how little he can get away with to do it.
How about this? How about this?
I
Is that
mean,
if you are the
He's gonna trade in
Eagles,
another spot.
if you are the Eagles and you want to make that deal, maybe you don't need to make it with Tampa.
What?
I mean,
Well,
could you not? Could you not?
And I don't know if you guys
Could you
have
not
spoken-
make it? Could you make it with who is another team in the top five
Yeah.
that doesn't need a quarterback? Because if Jameis Winston, you could hang around to see if Tampa
Hey,
picks
the
Jameis Winston.
The Titans are right there. The Titans may take Mariota, so
Very
you know
true.
you have to keep that in mind because
true.
their quarterback situation is not any better than ours is.
Or let's say that Mariota slips to say number 8.
Oh,
Number
it's
13.
doable. That's definitely doable.
And the Eagles get him. I mean, the Falcons.
The Falcons would do a trade with them in a heartbeat for 2 second round picks.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
One next year, and that'd be it. It'd be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I could see it more realistic if the Eagles were up like maybe 5 picks, like you know, in the top 10. I could see a trade happening, but they're just too low for that to happen. I just don't see it.
I just don't think you're getting the value back.
No, I actually don't think so. I don't think so. Because I tell you why. And I think that even if I'm at the 20, so they're gonna give me their first round pick and their quarterback, plus a couple of other picks in with that. Why not make that trade? Because you can fill a lot of holes with those extra draft picks,
Okay.
and you
In
plus
addition to
now you
what
got the
you already
quarterback
have.
situation in a sense. Exactly. In addition to what you, so where if you got 7 picks now you got about 10 picks, plus you got the quarterback whole field. Now you can fill a lot more. You can focus on Tampa 2 as a line. You can actually probably pick up an extra wide receiver that's going to probably replace Vincent Jackson in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, the way I look at it, so even if at the 20th pick, if I got the quarterback position taken care of in a sense with Nick
Which is a
Foles,
huge
and then I
hole.
got 10 picks,
Mm.
think about it.
Yeah.
I consider taking that deal.
All right, guys, I got a dip.
All right, Scott. Good seeing you, man.
All right.
All right, well, and we'll contact you about the off-season schedule. I was thinking maybe the first Monday of the month. I mean, first Wednesday of the month.
That would
Since we're on the first Wednesday right now, so I'll hit you up on Twitter.
sounds
All right,
good.
Scott.
Okay, Scott. Take care.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Hey,
we
if I
got a
could-
couple of last questions for you, and then you go ahead, Gene. And then I just want to ask you about Bucs and a guy that they don't want to see go to free agency.
Yeah. I want to say I hope that the Bucs can get Lavonte David signed. That's been on my mind since the offseason. I would, if that were me, I would have gotten him signed first and foremost.
Easy.
But that's a no-brainer right there. And I really do hope that you know, Jason Light can do his job and actually assess the talent and bring in the people for the Bucs to work with. I know it's not going to happen because of the control that Lovie Smith has, but you have a general manager there for a reason, and I'd really like to see him be able to show what he can do.
Lavonte David will look good in a Saints uniform.
No, he wouldn't, man. No. He just upset my stomach, man.
Is David a free agent now?
No, but you want to get him. You want to get him signed up. You want to get.
One more year. Do like one more year. Right?
Yeah, but that's somebody that I wouldn't even play around with that. That's something you get that resolved right now. And I was kind of. Hey, I was worried about Gerald McCoy because wasn't anybody say anything about Gerald McCoy, and then I got to breathe that sigh of relief when they signed him during the middle of the season. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean because y'all let him get out. You let Lavonte David get out of free agency.
No.
It is so over. You're not getting him.
No, I know.
You're gonna overpay, or you're gonna severely overpay to keep him.
Yeah.
Joey, you had a question written down here about attendance, and I'm going to ask Gene, but before Joe sent this to me. He said, according to ESPN, the Bucs have the fourth lowest attended games, fourth lowest, and is winning the only way to cure that? That's Joe's question. But my question to you, Joey, is who the hell has lower attendance than the Bucs?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think Jacksonville was one. Jacksonville.
That would make sense.
I think Tennessee was one.
That would make sense.
Got to be the Chargers.
And maybe San Diego.
Well,
too nice to go to a football game there.
Yeah, they had an stadium.
Well, I go all the way back to '97 when the Bucs started their winning trend, and from '97 to about, I'd say 2000, the tickets were starting to get harder and harder to get. I remember when it was the big sombrero. You could go at noon. You could decide, hey, I'm going to the game at noon, and you could sit down on the 50-yard line almost, depending on which game it was. And then once the Bucs started winning and going to the playoffs on a regular basis, those tickets just started going, and they were selling out all the time. But the losing trend that we've been on since John Gruden left, having to go with Raheem Morris, even though he did have a 10-6 season, and then dealing with Greg Schiano and his antics, it's going to take a little bit to get the fan base back. Along with the economy, I do believe that if the Bucs do start winning, I do see the fans coming back to the stadium.
You're all wrong, guys. It is Minnesota, St. Louis, and Oakland.
Oakland?
That will make sense. Because Oakland Stadium is pretty old, too. It's pretty beat up.
And St. Louis is about to dip to Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Right. Well,
and that's part of the reason why.
Oakland may be going there, too. I think I got a feeling Oakland may be going there, too.
Oh, they're going to San Antonio.
And then in our division, it is from least to most. Atlanta's 10, New Orleans is 9, Carolina's 8.
What, as far as highest attendance?
Yeah, highest attendance.
Okay,
yeah.
So you guys got higher attendance than we do. Well, this year probably was, yeah.
Yeah, it was. This is 2014.
Say that order again. Who's got the worst attendance in our division?
In our division, it is Tampa at like 20. I guess they'd be 28th.
Yeah.
All right.
And then Atlanta at 10, New Orleans at 9, and Carolina at 8.
Yeah, but it's probably not.
We have the highest attendance, is what you're saying?
In our division, yes, and we're 8th.
And is that number inflated by the PSLs?
Yes.
You know what? Let me say this: the Carolina Panthers have gone two years in a row to the playoffs, and winning covers a multitude of sins. And I'm telling you, that's when you have a winning team, everybody loves a winner, and that's what's going to get those butts in the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And you guys played to the end of the season as far as getting into the playoffs. So it was worth going to the games and at the end of the season too.
That's when it gets that under Rivera. It's not worth it until after Thanksgiving.
Right. December's the month to go see the Panthers play.
Yeah, is you eat your Thanksgiving dinner and then you start getting ready for football season.
Yep. Much.
All right, Joe, outside looking in, you got a question for Gene and maybe even a old school guy.
An old school guy.
Yeah, in the news. Looking like Big Tasty from
Big Worm.
yeah, Big Worm.
Well, let me ask you this, Gene. How much of a factor is getting Gerald McCoy healthy and getting him back on the field going to play in next year's defense?
Oh, he's the heart and soul of the defense. And I could give you one example. The Buccaneers in 2011, and Joe McCoy hadn't reached anywhere near what he is now. Had a 4-win. They had won 4 games, and after Joe McCoy went down with an injury, the team didn't win anything else the rest of the year, and that was the year that Raheem Morris was fired. And I do believe that every time he's gone out, it's been very hard for this defense to get a team off the field. He is the engine that drives this team.
Yeah. He is. Because when he's gone, you get that push up the middle usually, and everything else is just.
And he has the fastest first step I have seen in a long time for somebody as big as he is, getting off the ball to get after the quarterback. It's uncanny to watch him. I look at him and I look at Ndamukong Suh, and I'm just like, wow, these guys, it's just amazing the footwork that they have to be as big as they are.
Can they pair them? Can the Bucs bring Suh to Tampa?
I can't see investing that much money in a defensive line.
Yeah,
I can't see it. Not with all the glaring holes that the Buccaneers have elsewhere, especially with the offensive line. It would be nice. I would enjoy it, but I couldn't realistically see that happen.
Price tag.
Oh, absolutely.
To probably make that realistic, to make that worth it, you have to be in double-digit sacks, both guys. You have to literally be in double-digit sacks to pay off.
Yes, most definitely. You'd have to be first. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish your thought.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I got to ask the question. It's been on my mind because this is what I think about the most, is that if Big Worm would have called you to bail him out of jail, would you have done it?
Most definitely. As long as he let me drive his Bentley, yeah, I'd have done it.
All right. The other thing about that is that this Warren Sapp arrested on prostitution, soliciting prostitution. On top of that, he was cheap about it and was arguing and bickering over money with the hoes. And then my question is this, is that he was critical of Gerald McCoy this season for being nice, and this is let me this.
Okay, I'm glad you asked me this question, because if it were me, I would have told him to stay his butt in Scottsdale, because he could have hooked up with any number of those cougars down there and not had to worry about any of this.
Where did he go? Where did he go down?
He was not in Scottsdale. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, I thought he was in Arizona.
Yeah, he was in Arizona. Scottsdale's a part of Arizona. That's where all the parties were for the Super Bowl. But 7 o'clock in the morning, he was. I don't know where he was, but.
I thought it was in Phoenix. I thought he was in Phoenix.
Yeah, he was in Phoenix. Yeah, if he's sitting there arguing bickering about money, that's kind of on him. You know what? I want to feel sorry for him, but I've seen some of the comments he's made on Twitter when people mess up, and the little slick comments that he makes about people that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and now here he is.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Jeremy Shockey go after him?
Yeah.
I know he did, but I didn't see what he said. I didn't see what he said.
All right, so Jeremy Shockey got a lot of flack from Warren Sapp because Warren Sapp called him a snitch in the whole Bounty Gate thing. And he said, and Warren Sapp said that he had sources that told him that he was a snitch, and it turns out he wasn't. And it also turns out that the NFL Network told him to be to stick to commentating and to stop reporting. And so then Jeremy Shockey got on Twitter when he heard that Sapp got arrested, and he said, according to sources, I heard Sapp got arrested for prostitution or something. All right, so let's talk about the Carolina Panthers for a moment. Joey,
Okay.
Joe, you cover the Panthers pretty thoroughly with CarolinaCatChronicles.com. What would you say if, after hearing the positioning of these teams, how do you feel about the Carolina Panthers in relation to Atlanta Falcons with a new coach, defensive mind? You've got Tampa Bay with a lot of money and also the opportunity to get a #1 pick, and then you got the Saints, the Saints to me are the biggest mystery of the entire division. How do you feel about the Carolina Panthers at this point, Joe?
Truthfully, I feel good, and the reason I feel good is we have stability going into this off season where everybody else has something going on, whether it's a new coach, new staff, new coaching staff additions, or front office and front office issues. The Saints, bringing in a new scout, talent evaluator kind of thing.
Remember, we fired 3 coaches too.
There you go.
The fourth coach just left to go to Tulane, so we got coach positions to fill as well.
I feel very, very good with where we are as an organization right now. It seems, at least for just this time being, we are the most stable organization in the NFC South, and that has, that's invaluable going into an off season, getting ready to start, going through the draft process, that sort of thing. We already have the pieces in place where other teams are still sorting some things out.
Speaking of that stability, and Dave Gettleman with a GM that has just completed his second season, he's been learning on the job. We interviewed Darren Gant from ProFootballTalk.com, and that's how he described it, learning on the job. He's made some mistakes, but overall, he's really pulled some rabbits out of his hat. And last season, Joey, Dave Gettleman for the Carolina Panthers had a tremendously successful draft. So you get that stability, and then you get that kind of scouting aptitude from the management. Is this something that you feel particularly good about going into the NFL draft?
Yes, I feel very good about it. We've actually had 2 good drafts in a row, and I can't see any reason why that would not continue. We have the same pieces in place, and I fully expect this draft to be just as successful as the previous 2.
Okay, so you got a stable organization, but you also got some needs too. Gene, you were going to jump in there and ask something.
Yeah. First and foremost, about the Super Bowl. How did you feel about Brandon LaFell and how he did? How did that make you feel seeing a former receiver playing on the big stage and playing for a team that ended up winning it all?
Well, for me personally, it didn't bother me one way or the other. I know he was not consistent enough for me at Carolina to want to keep him. And even in New England, he had some moments where, he showed some inconsistency. Good for him. He got a Super Bowl ring. It didn't bother me either way.
Now, with that being said, do you think that he would have made a difference for Carolina? Do you think Carolina would have gone farther into the playoffs had they had him?
I think he would have helped the offense some, because I think he probably is a bit better than whoever we were having as our third guy, better than Avant, I think. But I don't know if he would have been able to get us over the hurdle. I mean, you're only talking like maybe 40 catches for 600 yards tops from him at Carolina, if those numbers even.
Okay, and one more question. Can you name three wide receivers that you would potentially see playing or starting at Carolina, whether it's through the draft or free agency?
Free agents, I like Cecil Shorts. I like what he can bring as far as value. I think there's some value to be had there. I do like Justin Hardy in the draft, maybe a third-round pick, depending on his combine performance. He brings some things that we need to our receiving core. And lastly, there's a couple guys. I guess the white kid from Virginia and West Virginia, excuse me, and the strong kid from Arizona State.
Yes. Okay.
Those two guys I like a lot. I don't know if they'll be there when we pick, but if so, I think those are options.
And you know, kind of putting your objectiveness aside and just being a Carolina Panthers fan, what do you think of the patience that the front office has shown Ron Rivera in allowing him to remain as head coach throughout the bumpy roads that you had? Do you think that's a good model for the rest of the NFL?
I think it is. I think, you know, with today's culture of win now, a lot of guys don't get a chance. You know, you come in with this particular scheme in mind, and you have to draft. You have to acquire via free agency. And with the salary cap, sometimes you're very limited, and you don't get a chance to implement the kind of things you want to do. You know, 3 years, you don't make the playoffs, you're gone. You know, when it may take 4 years.
Right.
Well, I tell you, because the one thing I can remember when Bill Cowher won his Super Bowl, probably the coolest thing to me about that, and I mean, I'm not a Steelers fan. The coolest thing was the fact that it took him about 14 years to do it. You know what I mean? It took him roughly about 14 years. With the interesting part with me is that I thought it was cool the fact that they stuck with him all those years, even through those 8 and 8 years, where a lot of times they could easily fired him and moved to another coach. You know, most owners would have fired him.
Sure.
And they waited and they held it out to that payoff. You know, and they finally got that payoff. And I think, you know, I mean, look at what happened with Jim Harbaugh. You know, I mean, look at what happened with John Fox. You know, these days, I mean, like, that's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and I thought, especially with San Francisco, I thought that was very short-sighted to get rid of this guy because you weren't winning before he came.
Right.
You had Mike Singletary. You weren't doing anything.
No, you weren't doing anything. I mean, they had players. They actually had good drafts.
Yeah, yeah, talent. Yes.
You didn't know it until Harbaugh got there. You didn't realize how good they were until Harbaugh got there. So Singletary,
Alex Smith needs to send part of his check back to that guy because Alex Smith was nothing before he came.
No. He was a bust.
He was a potential waiter.
I'd like to point out an older name that I think illustrates the same point, and that's Marty Schottenheimer in San Diego.
Yes.
I
agree.
You know, the
14-2
guy that gets fired, he goes 12-4.
No, 14-2.
14-2.
He was 14-2. What happened was, and I know that whole story on that. What happened was that same year they went 14-2. I think the offense coordinator got a head coaching job. Then Wade Phillips got the job in Dallas. And I think it was Cam Cameron, as a matter of fact. Cam Cameron, I think, was the offense coordinator. He got the job in Miami. And then you had Wade Phillips get the job in Dallas. And Schottenheimer and A.J. Smith, the GM, were not getting along. They didn't like each other at all. So he really didn't communicate. So he figured he'd make the move and just go ahead and fire Schottenheimer. After a 14-2 season in the playoffs, fire him and put another coach in. He figured he'd get another coach in and the team would be fine, which he picked Norv Turner, who's actually a fantastic offense coordinator.
Great mind.
Brutal head coach.
Yes.
Brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, love the guy's offense coordinator. Take him a heartbeat, but I mean, as a head coach, no, I'll crap my pants before I let that guy go. If he gets hired as my head coach, I'd just be like, oh God, no. You know, but he's you know, but that's what and that was just arrogance of A.J. Smith. That's another situation right there. You're right. You know, and I mean, like those situations blow my mind when they happen. You know, how you don't work that out.
All right, Joey. I think that because we're a little over on time, let's talk one last issue about the Carolina Panthers, and this is the left tackle. Is this something that you truly can believe that can be addressed through the NFL draft, or is this something that you need to bridge gap with the free agent?
Yeah, I think with where we're drafting, I believe we're going to have to go via free agency, just because tackles are such a high value position. They're going to go very quickly off the board, and they're going to be none available at 25 that are worth reaching for. I don't believe.
At least those that you know they're going to be the good 10-year,
Right.
10, 15-year left tackle.
Right.
They usually go pretty.
Or that aren't going to take more than 3 years to develop.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, the ones that you can plug right in today and they can come out
Plug
there
and play.
and
No
they can,
plug and play.
right.
And I think that's hard. I think that's hard for a top 5 guy.
It is.
It is.
Nick Matthews, he struggled, and he didn't even play. He wasn't originally intended to play left tackle.
And that's what's happened with the NFL. Once again, it's the win now organization, where it used to be you had you could draft a quarterback in the first round. He's going to sit and learn from the starter, and then eventually kind of move him into that position. And now, if you're drafted between the first and the third round, you're expected to start and produce.
And see that, you think about it. Back in those days, I mean, Terry Bradshaw is a gleaming example. Took him about 5 years to really catch on the position. I can think of a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, it's a lot of Roger Staubach. I mean, a lot of the all-time greats sat for a few years, learned the position, and then all you think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Look at Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, sat behind Favre. That's a very good point, Dean. Very good point. I think the problem started to come on when the rookie contracts were getting so high. You had this guy on the bench that was making more money than your starter, and you expect him.
How'd this cat get in our hangout?
Oh, no.
I didn't know they was recording my driving.
You like the idea?
15 states.
Nice.
Laws on who can access EDR.
Turn this down.
It's not one of them, though. So here's what
How did he get in here? He hacked our computer screen. That was crazy.
That was crazy.
How the hell did that guy get in? I don't know who he was.
He must be Greg's roommate.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. We had a crazy guest come in. We should have talked to him. We should have interviewed him. I ejected him. Ejection. Okay. Let's stop with this. I'm going to go around and ask you guys to rank the teams. Give us your power rankings for the NFC South, and we'll close out the show with this. Joe, since we spent the least amount of time on the Carolina Panthers, how about you just go ahead and give them a number 1?
A number 1.
rank the NFC South. Give me your NFC South power rankings for the 2015 season.
Carolina Panthers, number 1.
All right. Who's number 2?
Wow. That's such a good question.
Deep thoughts with Joe Riollano.
I'm gonna have to go with I guess the Falcons. Can't even believe I'm saying that. And then I guess the Saints and Tampa, because we know they have the most holes to fill.
Okay. Greg, top to bottom, who do you got?
Well, I mean, the Carolina's the champs till we knock their asses off the mountain. So that's number 1. I'm going to go Atlanta number 2. I mean, because at this point in time, Atlanta was the team that, basically came in second place. I'm going to go New Orleans number 3. And part of that reason is because as much as I know that we got talent, we still got questions. We still got a lot of questions. I mean, coaching staff, stuff like that I want to see what happens there. So to me, it's too early to really rank them. But
sure.
At this point in time, also, too, I don't want my team going in with any last year we went in expectations of going to the Super Bowl. This year, we're dog shit. At this point, we got to work our way up. As far as I'm concerned, we're working from the ground up. I don't want any arrogance. I don't want any of that. We got to work to get to number 1. So as far as I'm concerned, we're 3. I'll give us 3. And then we go Tampa 4 because of the fact, like you said, too many holes to fill. A lot of holes to fill.
Gene, is this going to be unanimous across the board?
No, not even close. I do say Carolina because they are the champions. 2 years going to the playoffs in a row.
Yep.
You can't argue with that.
Hey,
I do think that Tampa, because of what the potential that they had, not having an offensive coordinator and still being able to compete in games, and then now having an offensive coordinator and potentially filling some of the holes, as you guys mentioned, I do believe that they could turn it around. You have a base with your defense of players that have played in Lovie Smith's defense. You have potential. I kind of looked at the offense that Dirk Carter ran in Atlanta, and I do think that you could get people in there to play in those different positions and actually produce the first year. So I do expect us to be competing for the NFC South Championship.
Wow.
So give us the
Who's number
rankings
three?
again.
I'm sorry. So we've got Carolina number 1, Tampa. I'm going to say Tampa number 2, and I would put the Saints and the Falcons as a tie for the last place.
You know, I always feel that Gene is typically the most level-headed out of all of us, but he just fell off the Tampa Bay boat. he just walked the plank on that. You're gonna have a rookie quarterback.
I'm gonna say this, and I know that we can always look back on this one particular video here and talk about this. But yeah. Hey, you know what? Hey, I will give the devil his due if I'm wrong. Hey, I will walk the plank. But I'm telling you, I really do feel like Tampa's going to be better than what a lot of people think that they are.
Yeah, I agree, and I do too. I feel like my team will too. But I'm just saying, as of today, I got to go third because I don't see until those questions are answered, till I know exactly what I got laid out in front of me, and we don't. It's too many questions. I can't rank myself any higher right now. That's my feeling.
I'm gonna pick the same order as Joe that Joey's got. I'm gonna pick the Carolina Panthers because number 1, and not because they're the defending champs, but because that they had a young group of talented kids show that they can play, that we're gonna be able to build around next year. Yeah, Cam Newton in a contract year, he's gonna ball out and he's gonna be healthy for the first time ever. The second reason I'm gonna go with Atlanta is the fact that I think you bring in a defensive guy, he can improve the defense enough, even with the guys that are there to compete. And the Atlanta offense, Matt Ryan's been there long enough. I feel like he could run it on his own almost. So it's not like you need a guy to come in there and redo that entirely. There are some question marks. I don't think their running game is any good, and I think to me that is an underestimated question. I think that Scott has not, put that to the forefront as much as, I don't think Jacquizz Rodgers is the answer there.
Well, you got Shanahan running that offense, and don't get me wrong. I mean, he's like solid but not spectacular if anything.
I don't like him. I don't like any of the Shanahan guys. So yeah, I mean, so you could actually. I just feel like they're just going to be by default, and I want to say. I just can't pick New Orleans. I'm going to go with New Orleans just because Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham. And other than that, I don't know. I don't know anything about New Orleans right now. There are so many question marks surrounding that team to me.
Agree.
That I understand. I understand your whole point, Greg, about saying we're building from the bottom and anything is good at this point. But here's the problem with the NFC South is that everybody's got good picks except for the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, if you guys were going to suck, that last year was the year to suck.
Yeah. Yeah, you got, hey, that's one of the spoils of winning the division. You get to pick 21st.
Or 25th.
25th, because we won a playoff game.
25th, I thought it was 21st for some reason.
Yeah, that's the highest we could have picked, but since we did better towards the end.
Oh, that's right, because you did win a game.
Right.
Yeah.
We beat Arizona.
Oh, we dominated a game, but all right, that's my power rankings because I also don't know. I'm gonna put Tampa Bay at 4th, but I really understand what you're talking about, Gene, that they could be better. But without that quarterback, do you think that you guys draft a quarterback and he starts day one?
You know what? The big thing, and I know you guys have watched the Buccaneers, the offensive line is what killed us. The quarterback, I don't care who was back there, you need more than 3 seconds to get that ball out sometimes. And the fact that we couldn't make holes for our running backs to get through, and that's one of our strengths is our running game with Doug Martin, Bobby Rainey, and now Chris Sims, who's 100% healthy, and you will get to see a whole lot more of him this season coming up. I just think that with the offensive line, if it's healthy and we can get holes and we can get protection on the quarterback, I think it'll make a big difference. But, you know, I understand what you're saying. I understand your doubts, but I just think that they have the right pieces in place to get us competitive to where we can compete for better than fourth. I'm sorry.
Well, the good news is that the whole division is competitive because it's really even the champion is in the bottom dregs of, wasn't even having a winning record.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think the NFC South as a whole will come out and they're going to surprise. We're going to surprise a lot of people and get back to winning like we were, prior to this.
I think so too.
This year we don't have like two or three double-digit winning teams this year. I do think that this division will have a hell of a lot better record overall. Everybody, will play a lot better and a lot stronger. We just had a crappy year that year. We were down a year for everybody.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of strange. If it repeats like that, I would be totally surprised.
Well, do you remember 2011 when what was it? The Seahawks went to the playoffs with 7 wins.
Yeah.
And Arizona was horrible, and everybody was laughing at the NFC West, or what is it?
NFC West.
NFC West. I mean, NFC West.
Yeah. So it happens.
Division.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we'll have plenty to talk about, and we can continue this conversation where we always engage with each other in our smart, witty ways on Twitter. And, Gene, tell them how they can tell you to walk the plank on Twitter.
Yeah, you guys can clown me because of my power rankings if you want to. You can get me at super heavyweight on Twitter.
Let me interject on this, is that if you are going to put out that bold prediction this early in the season is the time to do it.
Amen.
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully everybody got short-term memory if it don't come true, but, hey, you got to...
No, if it comes true, you'll look like a damn soothsayer.
You know what? And it couldn't happen to a better person or a better team.
There you go.
Well, the former, yes, the latter, not so sure. Greg Barber, you always will. You're a great follow on Twitter. Tell them how they can get you.
Oh, basically, you catch me at Intense GB, and feel free to talk to me anytime or say hello. Definitely, like I said, football, wrestling, basketball, whatever. I'm always, I'm around and I'm usually on. So, definitely looking forward to hearing from you. And right. Representing them Saints, baby.
He is the Big Show to Scott's Rey Mysterio.
Who dat? Big Show. Joe Riollano, they missed your window for today, but they might be able to catch you tomorrow on Twitter between 10
and 11.
That's right. He has closing hours.
How can they find you, Joey?
When they want to find me on Twitter, they must go to @JoeRiolano from the hours of 10 to 11. But I am getting ready to release my summer hours, so be on the lookout for that.
Are they longer?
That's awesome. He said, "Are they longer?" No, actually, it's from 10 to 10:45.
10 to 11:30. I'm sorry, 11. I'm sorry, Joe.
I think he's gonna shrink them. And now it's just Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 11.
That's right.
I do have one more thing I do want to say about the Super Bowl, my experience. I saw a lot of Carolina Panthers fans, a lot of Saints fans, and no Falcons fans. I was at the NFL Experience all day. I didn't see not one Falcons jersey,
wow.
But I did see a lot of Panthers fans and Saints fans. and I saw at least 10 Buccaneers fans.
Before we go, I want to ask Gene, and I want to ask you, Greg, just real quick, yes or no answer. 1 yard line, Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. Do you run the ball?
Yes.
Hell yeah, I was yelling. I kept yelling at him, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing Marshawn Lynch going in the wheel route. And the first thing I said was, damn, what the wrong with them? And the next thing you know, interception.
Either that or read option.
I will have to say, buy a Mississippi product in Mr. Butler, the fact that he's from the old home state and everything.
All right. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. You can follow me on Twitter at cat_chronicles, and you can check out my work on carolinacatchronicles.com. Be sure to check out the C3 podcast Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock. It's been really picking up steam. Even crossing the pond, we had a guy send us a note today from England saying he downloads our podcast on on iTunes. So I thought that was pretty cool. It made my day. So check out our work. We got a ton of content coming out tomorrow, from Danny Amendola, a potential Panther, to Julius Peppers, maybe a return home. Would he be welcomed? And that's it. That's the NFC South Southbound and Down podcast. Check us out the first Wednesday, I think, of the month, if we can all agree on that.
I'm there.
I'm cool with it.
You can go ahead and punch my ticket.
No, I'm good.
All right. And the Falcons are the worst fan base in all of football, and that's why I said that they were the best earlier. So, Scott, take that.
Hey, based on what I saw at the NFL Experience, you might be right.
All right. That is the show, guys, and we'll catch you later.